They don't teach you this in school, not in the textbooks, not in the self-help books, but hidden within the ancient teachings of Stoicism lies a forgotten art, not of peace, not of indifference, but of power, a silent, surgical power that operates in plain sight, manipulation. Yes, you heard that right. If you've ever felt like you're being played by the world, if you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling like something was taken from you, and you didn't know what, then type in the comments right now. I want to see behind the veil. And before we dive deeper, like this video if you've ever wanted to turn the tables, to finally hold the mirror, not just stare into it. It helps spread this knowledge to those ready to awaken. Now listen closely. Stoicism is often sold as silence, as calm, as the art of doing nothing. But that's only half the truth. Beneath its surface, beneath the polished quotes and modern cliches, is a much darker, sharper edge. The Stoics knew how to manipulate the soul, not just their own, but the souls of others. They mastered emotional alchemy, turning outrage into obedience, pride into humility, fear into silence. And if you're wondering, how does Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor, rule not just an empire, but the hearts of men? Or how does Epictetus, a slave, disarm the arrogance of philosophers with nothing but a stare and a phrase? It's not luck, it's not charm, it's technique. In this video, we're going to pull back the curtain on these lost Stoic manipulation techniques, not to deceive or dominate, but to understand, to protect, and yes, to lead. We'll trace the secret pathways these ancient masters used to influence kings, quiet enemies, and command the room without raising their voice. You'll see how silence can be more persuasive than shouting, how detachment becomes the deadliest strategy, and why true Stoics were never passive. They were always in control. But be warned, once you see what's hidden, you can't unsee it. Once you understand these techniques, the world will never look the same again. Every conversation, every power play, every subtle shift in tone will reveal itself. And so I ask you, are you ready to look through the eyes of a Stoic and not just admire their calm, but wield their power? Stay with me. What we're about to uncover has been buried for centuries, long before Stoicism became the buzzword of minimalists and motivational coaches. It was a weapon forged in the chaos of empires. The world of the Stoics was not one of peace. It was one of blood, betrayal, and political intrigue. Rome was a city of masks. Smiles hid daggers. Trust was a luxury no wise man could afford. In such a world, control wasn't optional. It was survival. Marcus Aurelius didn't rise by accident. He ruled in an age of plagues, wars, and insurrections, where every gesture had consequences. And what did he say? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. But read it again. That's not just advice, it's a code. Because once you mastered yourself, you became invisible to manipulation and dangerously capable of using it. Think of Epictetus, born a slave, crippled by his master, no wealth, no title, and yet philosophers, senators, and even emperors came to him, not just to listen, but to obey. He spoke, and the air around him shifted, not because he was loud, but because he knew the art of emotional disarmament. When you're unshaken by insult, unbroken by fear, and untouched by praise, you become something people can't define. And what they cannot define, they cannot control. Now picture this. A man walks into a Roman forum, accused of treason. The crowd is howling, the Senate is bloodthirsty, but he stands still, unblinking, silent. And in that silence, the energy changes. This wasn't detachment. This was a calculated manipulation of perception. The Stoics understood what modern minds forget. Control yourself completely, and you control how others feel about you. This wasn't spiritual fluff. It was psychological warfare. Seneca, advisor to Nero, the most volatile emperor in Roman history, wielded Stoic philosophy like a scalpel. He taught Nero restraint. He whispered calm into chaos. But more importantly, he influenced from within. He didn't fight madness with force. He bent it gently, invisibly, turning fury into compliance. And this is the truth that modern interpretations of Stoicism leave behind. The ancient Stoics weren't just sitting on porches meditating on virtue. They were architects of power, masters of subtle influence. They used stillness as strategy, virtue as leverage, and fate as a tool of persuasion. Because when you truly believe that nothing outside you can shake your peace, you become the most unpredictable force in the room. So when we say manipulation, don't think of trickery. Think of alignment. Think of bending reality without force, of guiding people, not through domination, but through presence. This is the hidden layer, the forgotten dimension of Stoicism, not passive acceptance, but silent influence. They never wrote this part in the books, because the ones who used it never wanted it known, and yet here it is, resurfacing now, because maybe, just maybe, you're ready to remember. Let us begin. The first, and perhaps the most misunderstood manipulation technique of Stoicism, was emotional invisibility. To the untrained eye, it looked like calm. To the wise, it was dominance. You see, most people live like open books, flipping through pages for anyone who walks by. Their joy, obvious. Their anger, loud. Their fear, leaking through their every word. But the Stoic? He closed the book. He burned the pages. He became unreadable. Why? Because emotion, exposed, is emotion controlled by others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This wasn't just about personal suffering. It was a formula, a shield, and a weapon. Imagine someone insults you. They expect fire, fury, retaliation, but instead they're met with stillness, a calm gaze, no reaction. Do you know what happens? They become uncomfortable. They start to question themselves. Did I say the wrong thing? Why didn't it land? Why isn't he angry? This is not just self-control. It's psychological reprogramming. The Stoics knew that when you offer no emotional fuel, others burn out on their own. And this leads us to the next technique. In conversation, most people rush, fill space, trip over words. But the Stoics? They paused. And in that pause, they created pressure. Seneca understood this intimately. He once advised, "Say only what's necessary, and only when necessary." It seems simple, but when applied with precision, this becomes a mind-shifting tool. In a debate, a pause before answering makes your opponent overthink. In an argument, silence forces the other to wrestle with their own words. In a negotiation, restraint becomes control, because humans hate empty space, and in that silence, they'll reveal what you never asked for. Next, we move to controlled vulnerability. The Stoics weren't cold statues. They showed emotion, strategically. Picture Epictetus speaking to a powerful Roman general. He shares a personal story, not to bond, but to lower the general's guard, to seem humble, relatable, and the moment the general softens, Epictetus strikes with a truth so sharp it leaves the man speechless. He used emotion not as expression, but as entry, like a thief slipping through an unlocked window. And then there is the mirror technique, a method used by the Stoics to disarm hostility without conflict. When insulted, they'd echo back, not the insult, but the essence. A man shouts, "You're a coward." The Stoic responds calmly, "Perhaps, but I fear less than I once did." Now who holds the power? By agreeing in part, they rob the attacker of tension. No resistance, no battle. The Stoic transforms the sword into mist, and in doing so, controls not just the moment, but the mind behind it. And finally, we arrive at the most dangerous technique of all, living without need. This is where the true manipulation lies. You cannot be bought if you need nothing. You cannot be threatened if you fear nothing. You cannot be used if you are already complete. This terrified emperors. It enraged tyrants. Because how do you control a man who has mastered himself? You don't. You follow him. You fear him. You call him mad. Or you call him a sage. The ancient Stoics didn't write guides on how to manipulate others. They wrote guides on how to free themselves. But in doing so, they became the greatest manipulators of all. Because once you need nothing from the world bends to you. Now you see the hidden thread. Now you've touched the unseen layer beneath the quotes. This isn't just wisdom, it's warfare. You've seen the mask. Now let me show you the face behind it. Because everything we've uncovered so far, emotional invisibility, strategic silence, the mirroring of insult, these were merely the entry points. What lies deeper are the paradoxes, the places where Stoicism turns in on itself, becomes shadowed, complex, where it stops being just philosophy and becomes a mirror of human nature at its most raw. Here's the first paradox. To influence others, the Stoic never tried to influence them. What does that mean? It means that real power doesn't pursue. It attracts. The Stoics didn't beg to be heard. They became so grounded, so untouched by approval or rejection, that people naturally leaned toward them, not because of charisma, but because of gravity. And this is what modern minds can't grasp. Detachment doesn't make you cold. It makes you magnetic. The less you try to win, the more you draw others in. This paradox lies at the heart of Marcus Aurelius's rule. He didn't command attention. He didn't crave loyalty. He lived in accordance with nature, and because of that, men died for him willingly. Because in a world drunk on ego and spectacle, his stillness was sacred. Now another paradox. The Stoic manipulates others best by mastering their own perceptions. How? Because reality isn't objective. It's filtered through emotion. And the Stoic, who has cleansed those emotional lenses, sees reality as it is. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And it wasn't just a comfort. It was a tactic. By eliminating personal bias, by stripping away fear, pride, and greed, the Stoic sees into the core of a person, while others react to tone, to insult, to mood. The Stoic reads intention. He manipulates, not the outer action, but the unseen current beneath. He doesn't push, he waits. He doesn't fight back. He lets others reveal themselves. And when the moment is right, he speaks a single sentence that changes everything. Let's go deeper still. There's a technique most have never heard of. We'll call it spiritual shadowing. It's not in any text, but it's embedded in the Stoic way of being. Here's how it works. When someone tries to manipulate you through guilt, praise, flattery, or fear, the Stoic mirrors their energy without absorbing it. He holds up a spiritual mirror so precise, so honest that the other person sees themselves clearly, sometimes for the first time. Imagine trying to flatter a man who feels no need for validation, or threaten someone who embraces death. Your words fall apart mid-air. That's the technique. Not rejection, not resistance, but pure reflection. This alone has made tyrants tremble. And then we reach the final paradox for tonight. True Stoic manipulation is never noticed. That's why it works. It's not a trick, it's a transformation. By embodying virtue, the Stoic doesn't need to persuade. His presence does it for him. People come to him for advice without knowing why. They trust him without understanding the source. They obey, not because of fear, but because something in them is moved. He becomes a living example of harmony with nature. And in a world of chaos, that makes him irresistible. You've now glimpsed what most never will. That Stoicism is not a doctrine of passive peace. It is the art of invisible influence, of internal power that radiates outward, rearranging the world without force. It was never just about accepting what happens. It was about learning to shape what happens by no longer needing to. Now you know the depth, not just the mask, but the soul beneath it. Tell me when you're ready to bring this power into the world, into action, into ritual, into your everyday existence. The ancient ones left the path. Now it's yours to walk. Now we descend from the temple into the world, because knowledge, no matter how sacred, is useless unless lived. And the manipulation techniques of the Stoics, they weren't meant to sit in books. They were meant to be embodied. Let's begin with the simplest and most profound ritual, the practice of pre-reaction. Each morning, before the noise of the world rushes in, the Stoics practiced what we now call premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of misfortune. But here's the twist. They didn't just imagine things going wrong. They imagined people trying to provoke them, to manipulate them, to twist their emotions, and they rehearsed their response, not with violence, not with ego, but with stillness. Try this. Before you leave your home tomorrow, sit, close your eyes, picture someone lying to you, blaming you, testing your limits. Then feel your first instinct and do not judge it. Just observe. Now breathe, rewind the scene, and rehearse a new response. One that is calm, clear, unshakable. A simple phrase, a silent pause, a step back. This isn't fantasy, it's training. The Stoics did it every day, so that when the manipulation came, they weren't surprised. They were ready. Next, the technique of the inner audience. This one comes from Marcus Aurelius himself. He wrote for no one. His journal, Meditations, was never meant to be read. He wrote to an inner council, a kind of divine witness watching his every move. And when faced with decisions, he'd ask, if someone noble, eternal, were watching me, what would I do? Here's how you use it. The next time you feel pressured, cornered, guilted, seduced into saying yes when your soul whispers no. Stop. Imagine that someone, wise beyond time, fierce in truth, is standing behind you, watching. How would you move then? What would you say? This isn't a mind trick. It's a way to anchor your identity, to align your actions with your highest self, not the frightened, manipulated version of you. And now, perhaps the most potent application, the withdrawal ritual. In a world obsessed with reaction, the Stoic masters knew the value of withdrawal. When others fought to be seen, heard, recognized, they stepped back, not out of fear, but out of design. They used absence as a message, distance as a mirror. Try this in your own life. When a situation feels like a trap, When someone is pulling emotional strings, don't respond. Withdraw, not as a retreat, but as a statement. Let the silence speak. Let others reveal who they are without your interference. Let the manipulator grow uncertain. Let the game collapse without your participation. You'll be shocked how quickly illusions fall apart when you refuse to play your part in them. And then there's language alchemy. This was Seneca's specialty. He knew that words were spells, and so he used them like a surgeon. Clean, precise, unforgettable. Practice this. Speak slowly, speak sparsely. And when you must speak, wrap truth in beauty and simplicity. Use phrases like, "Perhaps you're right. Let me sit with that. I'm not sure I agree, but I'm listening." These phrases disarm without surrendering. They create space, and in that space, you regain control. Because the moment someone can't predict your reaction, you've stepped out of their reach. Finally, the nightly inventory, a ritual practiced by Epictetus, by Aurelius, by every Stoic worthy of the name. At the end of each day, they asked, where did I remain unmoved? Where did I allow myself to be steered? What can I do differently, not with anger, but with awareness? This isn't guilt, it's refinement. So tonight before you sleep, sit with a single candle. Review the day not as judge, but as alchemist. Where did you give your power away? And where did you wield it with grace? These are not tricks. They are initiations. Each one a step deeper into mastery, not of others, but of self. And once that mastery is yours, manipulation becomes unnecessary, because influence flows from being, not from effort. So now you know. You've walked through hidden corridors of the Stoic mind, seen what most never glimpse. Not the Instagram quotes, not the polished summaries, but the living fire behind the marble. The force that made emperors tremble, that guided slaves into sainthood. The invisible blade of Stoicism, quiet, sharp, and utterly unstoppable. You've seen how silence is not weakness, but calculation. How detachment isn't numbness, but freedom. You've discovered that the Stoic manipulates not through deceit, but through presence, through the refusal to be controlled. And in doing so, becomes the one who moves the pieces. Marcus Aurelius alone in his war tent, writing by lamplight. Epictetus, barefoot and bound, speaking with a voice that outlived Rome. Seneca, whispering into the ear of a mad emperor. Each of them understood what this world still forgets. The most dangerous man in the room is the one who doesn't need anything from it. Because when you need nothing, you fear nothing. You crave nothing. You obey nothing but truth. And from that place, your words land differently. Your silence says more. Your gaze becomes a mirror, and your presence a test. So the question now is no longer, what did they do? It's, will you embody it? Will you stop giving your power away with every reaction? Will you start using your stillness as a weapon, your words as sacred tools? Will you begin living not to be seen, but to be solid? If so, then this path is yours now. Not a trend, not a trick, but a return to something ancient, something real. And if you felt it, if something inside you stirred, like an ember being relit after lifetimes of smoke, then let it burn, let it grow, and let others wonder how you became so unshakable. Before you go, ask yourself this and drop your answer in the comments. What is one thing I will no longer allow to control me? Let that be your starting point. And if this awakened something in you, like this video, share it with someone who needs to remember who they truly are. Because in a world that runs on noise, we need more voices of stillness, more souls who manipulate not with lies, but with the truth of their being. This is the forgotten art, and you're no longer a stranger to it.